Fine. Okay, we're live.
Oh,
Woo! Technical difficulties again.
oh my goodness. We're supposed to be singing the Salt and Pepper song. We were supposed to be
Okay, it's
with
salt and pepper, and you do not sing along with me. Let's try one more time, okay?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to start singing. You
I,
can't start after me. Maybe it's a delay. I don't know.
okay, why don't you just sing it?
No, I can't sing by myself.
Okay, try it. Okay,
Okay,
we'll try.
1, 2, 3. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Okay, we're done.
Oh, better.
That
That was
was much better. I
I
feel like you're too far away. Siobhan has had some difficulties. Anyways, first of all, welcome everybody to Candid Conversations. Today we continue our talk about sex. Last week, I thought it was super important to reflect on our earlier days. And because it kind of really, hi, Wendy, it really has an impact on today. But then I realized, I'm going to take my glasses off first of all, because I'm not reading anything today. I realized that a lot about the impact of the past on today, it's not just about your sexual experiences, it's relationships in general. I remember the last time we were chatting, Siobhan, I mentioned that one of the important things about having a healthy sexual relationship is being able to give nurturing and to receive. And I realized, holy crap, like I do not know how to receive. It keeps coming up. I really learned a lot last time. It was a little bit challenging. What about you? Any reflections on last week as we move into this week to the present?
it was kind of nice to look back and reflect at some of the stuff because after we had the conversation, I had to go and have a little internal conversation with myself and be like, okay, what things that have happened in my past become part of my present? What things
Hmm.
I reflect on that, based on experience, based on the things that I thought made sense, based on my religion, based on all of this other bullshit or things that have sort of crept in. And I had to take a very honest look at myself and go, wow, that really does affect who I am and how I show up in my sexual experience today. So it was hard hitting.
Yeah, it was interesting. I also reflected on some of those experiences and I was like, there was nothing really significant. I'm very blessed that I didn't go through any sort of personal violation. I am like, listen, there were times where I put myself in situations that could have been really bad. I can't not wear glasses. I literally can't really even see you. You're just like a blur. Oh, there she is. So
They're
beautiful.
too
You
far
guys have to deal with the glare, huh?
too far away anyways, because I'm on my phone.
I know. I'm like, where's Siobhan? There she is. Yeah, there were situations where that I put myself in. I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm alive. I didn't get sex trafficked into the unknown abyss. I don't know if anyone else has those experiences. You guys don't have to share them. But we're moving into today.
Yeah.
And Siobhan and I are not going to talk about our sex lives. My children, I want to point out, because I know some people who are on here know that I'm a teacher. And I thought very strongly about that, about what do I, can I even talk about this? Because once a teacher, always a teacher. I mean, that's the truth. Shimon, I don't know if you realize that, but we are always, if I'm in the grocery store, damn it, and I see a student, Mrs. Allen, like I'm always a teacher. But I've also taught parenting. I think I mentioned that in our first video. And I mean, we need to talk about sex. We need to talk about sexual health, right?
Well, one of the biggest problems with sexual relationships is the lack of communication. So the fact that we're having
Yeah.
is so important because there are so many women, likely lots of them that are listening, that don't know how to have a healthy sexual communication with their partner. So then suddenly it's like, well, how do you communicate your needs? How do you communicate those things that maybe you're interested in trying out? How do you communicate your lack of sexual intimacy? How do you communicate being able to step into things that you want and don't want? I can barely see this. So,
Oh, Wendy said that she ran into a student today at the drugstore. They're
yeah.
everywhere. And it's really funny when they talk to you because it just means that they liked you and you can't avoid because like I said, you're always a teacher.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Miss Christina. Welcome. This is really important. So let's talk about it. I think also I was going to say that I encourage my own children. They're not watching. Um, but I did encourage them to watch. So I have nothing to hide. I'm not going to say anything that's perverse or, going to get me in trouble. I think we need to talk about it. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Today's conversation is more about having a healthy sexual relationship with your partner, yourself, how you view sex right now. So lots of interesting things have come up because last time you mentioned the M word, masturbation. And you are, well, I don't know what it seemed like, an advocate for that, an
Oh,
advocate for enjoying your own body.
yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's people out there who, okay, I'm not trying to allude to anything of my own personal nature, but if you're not sexually active right now, um, I guess what I want to do is say that, sorry, time out. I realized that last time there was some awkward moments, and I'm like, I can talk about anything, and I guess in my mind I'm always thinking, and so that's what's happening right now. What I wanted to say is that whatever your preference is, like, we're not saying go out and masturbate today, like do it right now, like we're not telling you to do that, we're not telling you to go have sex with your partner. Number one thing for sure is communication, and also being in tune with yourself. So whatever you choose to do at this moment, the number one thing is that you're loving yourself, that you're aware of your needs and your body and what makes you feel excited and what doesn't, and be able to be okay with that. So we just want to make sure that that's very clear. But Siobhan, do you want to say anything more about this topic and our
Third,
grown up?
yes. So, guys, sorry I'm so far away. I'm on my phone. Google Chrome's not my friend today. So, we started talking about last week in terms of masturbation, and I said this is sort of the precursor to any relationship that you're going to have with another person, is making sure that you first have an established, healthy relationship with yourself. And a lot of people go, well, I'm not really into masturbating, don't have time, whatever. Oh, there we go. Okay.
I just fixed you. I'm sorry. I was like, wait a
Wow.
minute.
Wow.
Okay, good.
But a lot of people don't have a regular masturbation practice with themselves. And I think that, like I said, precursor to you with another person, because if you don't know the ins and outs of your own body, if you don't know what feels good, if you don't know where to be touched by touching yourself, it's hard to direct another person. So it actually bridges the gap by having sex with yourself. Because if you don't know how to communicate your own physical needs, because if somebody says, what do you like? And you're like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
That makes it a very uncomfortable conversation. It doesn't leave you feeling sexually empowered when you don't know how to have that conversation. So I would advise either getting yourself something to street at the stag shop or your local sex shop. You can get it ordered very discreetly to your home. If
I
you
was going to say, because if you don't, this is the thing. As a mother, okay, so my kids are on my freaking Amazon. Um, I had a friend order me something. She offered. She was like, "Girl, you got to get this." Um, even having some little fun things. Like, I think it does still go back to our past and how we were talking about how was sex talked about in your home. I mentioned that my mom was quite open. We didn't talk about sex. She wasn't out there walking around buck ass naked talking about her sexual. It was very whatever appropriate is, but it wasn't in my face. But I just knew that my person, who I am, was fine. And I don't think she talked about me touching myself or anything like that. But I mean, I'm sure from a young age, I was doing whatever I was doing. I don't even recall, but I'm sure I was fine. Um,
what
but
they'll want to say is I'm actually a big advocate for not having any sort of external stimulation and being able to stimulate yourself, because I think something that can happen is that you become almost dependent on that level of stimulation, which actually,
interesting.
yeah, because what can then happen is if you're flicking, you're getting really hard on your clit with a vibrator, you're taking a lot of that sensation away. So if some guy goes in, some girl goes in, whoever goes in with their fingers, you might have a harder time having the same sort of stimulation because you're now using a rabbit to try to stimulate somebody's hand motion. So sometimes
That's so interesting. That
yeah, I would suggest.
because I was like made fun of that. I didn't have anything. I had like nothing. I was just like, oh well,
But
whatever.
I'll say straight up, I don't have any sort of vibrators or things. Maybe if I was doing some fun play with a partner, but nothing that I use with myself. For me, it's like me and myself. And I would suggest, I mean, if you want to watch porn, check out different types of porn or listen to audio. So maybe just removing the sensation of your visual stimulation and just listen to auditory. So you're
Or look up some sexy stories like I did. There's erotica online. Now I haven't done that for a bazillion years. Oh, look at you with your glass of wine, Siobhan,
guys
getting in the mood. It's back on now.
back on.
Siobhan had taken a hiatus from alcohol, which is what I'm about to do right now. unless Siobhan comes to visit, and then we're totally having a drink together because the last time she was here, we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So so I'm going to say something right now. There's a great comment on here. If you do not want us to share, because right now no one can see your comment except for us, and even though we can see who's watching, we can't see who you are unless you post a comment. So if you do not want us to put your stuff out there, then put any emoji, anything. I don't care what it is, a smiley face, an eggplant, I don't care. Put it in your comment and we will not share it. So if there's just a comment, it could go on here. And you know what? Let's freaking put it out there. Here's Siobhan and I. We're pretty vulnerable people. If you're part of my transformative journey group, I just shared my actual weight at this moment. So you can go check that out because I'm trying to focus on that. All right. So let's look at this. This is a comment from Wendy, who's given us the okay. So Wendy, I'm familiar with a little bit of your journey. I mean, I definitely don't know the journey that you've been on, but years of fertility issues, you're saying, to be able to talk openly. And I'm glad that it wasn't an embarrassing thing for you. It shows the magnitude of your relationship and how open you guys are in general, because it's difficult to be vulnerable that way. So, and that's true. Like, it's one thing when you have sex to make a baby or to try to make something happen, it changes it, the mood of it. What were you going to say, Siobhan?
Well,
Sorry.
let's actually talk about conversations, because there might be people
Okay.
right now who are like, yeah, well, I feel uncomfortable having the conversation. There's
Yeah.
that are really important is if you're with a partner and you want to discuss a conversation perhaps around different types of sex. So maybe tonight you want to have some fantasy sex play. Maybe you want to have some lusty sex play. Maybe you want to have some just spiritual or really funny, because there's different sex styles. But starting with that conversation is really important when you broach that conversation, because a lot of times people want to have a conversation, or maybe it's to do with intimacy or impotency, and that's a huge one. So the time to address those conversations is very crucial to the effectiveness of that conversation. So if you're just trying to have sex and it's not working, or you're not in the mood, or as a female you just can't get going without some lube, and this is a conversation you want to have, it's not the best time to do it while you're in the moment of intimacy. It is a really good thing to separate yourself, do it on a neutral point, and don't surprise your partner with the conversation.
Yeah.
Don't just say, like, sit them down, they're going to have a coffee, and you throw in this conversation. Like, give them a little bit of a precursor to what you want to discuss, so it kind of gets them prepared. Maybe it gets them thinking of things that they want to broach the subject with you as well. But making sure that the effectiveness of the conversation depends on when you decide to have it. So being very, very intentional with that, and also making them I statements. So it is a very important thing to be mindful of your criticism when it comes to, well, you're not doing this and I'm not getting this from you. It's like, no, the I statement. So I would really like, I am feeling because I need this. Like, make them
Well, the thing is, so I don't know anything about a same-sex relationship. I don't know if it's easier for those conversations or just as difficult. I feel like when we bring up topics, and there's a couple great comments coming up. I'm going to share them in a minute, guys. I think when we do maybe broach the topic, people automatically get a bit defensive.
Yeah.
Your sex, what you bring to your partner, it's like we want to do, so we want to please our partner, we want to be sexy, we want to be enough, and as soon as you say, well, I don't like it when you do that, the person can get really, really now that goes back to confidence and communication. You have to just be willing to talk. I want to share a couple of the comments here. So Christina mentioned that, and I know the religion that Christina grew up in, we don't have to mention it, but talking about masturbation, I love that you put M word. Like, I don't know if that's because it's just such a long word, but was a sin. And Siobhan and I talked about that before, about sex, like these things, like wait until you're married, and that it was such a big no. And then, but you were kind of curious about it. How can you not be curious about it? As soon as you're attracted to somebody and you feel the strains, it's like your heart starts, it's all like you can't help but feel warm down below. And you're like, oh my God, what's happening to me? And then if you're told that it's a sin, right, Siobhan? Remember, didn't you say that too? Like, don't, and there's no conversation. Don't do it. Good girls don't do that. And then I don't know what it's like to be a guy either, right? But I think sometimes we think that guys are dogs, or guys are just, they don't care. But I think sometimes you got to really get to know your guy or your partner.
Yeah.
Once again, speaking as a heterosexual, so I don't know. But anything that was sexual was frowned upon. And how you're raised definitely can affect how you view sex. It's always in the back of your mind. It's part of our healing journey. It really is, because I'm all about, the transformative journey is all about finding who we are right now. Who we were before is a part of us. I just read something that we live a variety of lives, childhood, adolescence. I'm not talking about past lives, like, when we were Queen of Sheba or whatever. It's these lives that we live right now in our current lifetime, and they have an impact on us, but there's stories now. So how can you as an adult right now develop a great sexual awakening? And that's what we're going to talk about next week, is from here on in. Last thing, so unfortunately, anything related sexual, there's still bad feelings, but I'm really glad that you're joining this conversation, especially with me, because I know who you are and you know who I am. No one else knows that, but I think it's fantastic that you're here tonight, Christina. Okay, Siobhan, did you want to say anything to this?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I definitely understand the conversation that wasn't being had. Sex is a sin. You're going to hell. Sex before marriage, big no. There's no, those two things do not merge together. So in having that sort of dialogue, it is really important, again, now as an adult, to start to know yourself better. Again, this is why I think masturbation is a really good conversation, a good first place to start getting to know your own body. Because like I said, I know a lot of women who have never had an orgasm during sex, who have never squirted. There's a huge range of things that and again, it's neither good nor bad if that's not where you're at, but a lot of it has to do with mental.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And letting go, letting go.
yeah,
Actually, I love Wendy's comment here because it reminds me about letting go. So during her fertility issues, if you're just tuning in, so Wendy's just adding that it did make it more clinical. This, you had a timeline probably to try to make a baby, and so here we go. But your husband added some humor to it and try to make things fun, which really takes the pressure off. What a great guy to be able to do that, and I'm sure for you to allow that to happen.
yeah.
And also how your body changed. I just saw your post. Wendy's been really focusing on her health and doing some great things, and has lost, did you say 57 pounds? Like,
Good.
that's fabulous. And it's all through, really taking care of herself. So at the time you weren't feeling sexy. I'm hoping you're feeling sexier now, because you look freaking fantastic, girl. You're
And
a beautiful woman.
last statement. So he worked very hard to make me feel
Yeah.
desired. That is a very, very important conversation to have. And again, so much of this goes back to communication, but when we take personal accountability, personal responsibility for you feeling desired, like this also
Yeah.
comes back again to, how much sleep are you getting? What's your health like? Because
Yeah.
health, like if you don't feel good in your own body, it's very hard to translate those sexy feelings to be with another person when you don't feel good seeing yourself naked, much less having somebody else see you without your clothes on. So again, this comes back to your health. And even again, and this is on a separate note, but something to think about, but your diet affects the way that you taste.
Hmm.
If you're a vegetarian, if you're a meat eater, you're going to taste significantly different than if you don't eat meat. So there are foods and things that you can actually look at in terms of how to shift your pH. So your pH that's going on in your
Okay,
body.
so you're gonna have to add that to our post somewhere. We got to put a post about things to eat to make you taste good. Everybody wants to know.
I will absolutely do that. But it is, yeah, and again, this comes back to my nutrition side, but it is really important because there are certain things in your diet that certainly affect the way that you taste. And
And that goes with drinking too.
yeah.
If, for a male partner, if they're, yeah, enjoy, cheers. If you've been intoxicated or are intoxicated, the feeling that you have is not the same as when you're sober. I mean, it could still be fun. I remember someone said, you should smoke pot. It makes it feel better. I'm like, I don't know what I'm missing. This is before I am not a pothead. I don't really let go a lot and do just things like that. And
Yep.
I'm like, I'd rather just be really conscious and aware. I would love to have a partner who really wanted to take time to, actually, it makes me feel all funny thinking about it, because I hear what you say about being sexy. I just announced how much I weigh, and I'm obese, and I'm still loving me, but I can look at my body and go, I don't care. I still I am still adorable, and I'm still, and even with I've had 3 kids, man. I've got some stretch marks, I've got some added stuff, and I'm like, I'm okay with that, and I'm really thankful. My big thing is letting go. And I don't know, what is it letting go of? And I'm wondering if any other women have that. Oh, Wendy's talking about having some pineapple.
Yep.
Okay, so I thought pineapple too was an aphrodisiac. So pineapple might be, it's quite tasty and juicy and sweet. Okay, moving on. So I wondered about anyone else about letting go. Um, is it about being vulnerable? Is it about, so I think for me, it's about someone paying attention to people. I haven't done that either, but someone paying attention to me.
But there's also an element of letting go that's very hard because it is such a vulnerable thing. Like, when I think letting go, I think being able to scream. A lot of women
Oh
and
yeah. Hey, you
are,
don't have children. Holy shit.
you know, but there again, that goes back to, it's very difficult, and I can only speak from a female perspective, but it's very difficult to be able to allow yourself to fully let go, especially if there's not that trust within the partnership, because
Yeah.
different partners, it's been so much easier because it's being celebrated, and I'm being celebrated, and I'm being made to feel sexy, and again, that helps to boost my own confidence. But there's been other partners where that certain level of comfort isn't there, and it's a lot more difficult, which makes it more difficult to climax
Yeah.
within and again, and we've not even touched on this, but depending on what kind of sexual trauma you may have, that also is going to impact where you are psychologically and whether or not that this is even going to feel like something is safe for you.
You know what's interesting? I haven't experienced sexual trauma, but safety. The number one thing I wrote when I created my vision journal page for my next romantic partner, because I do believe that the next one is going to be the one. And it makes me kind of like giddy and uncomfortable all at the same time. The number one word that I wrote on the back of that as an intention, or what I wanted, was safe. I want to feel safe. Now, my ex-partner was not a person who was, it wasn't about anything physical or anything. It was about not being fully present, not really feeling connected. And I didn't feel safe, but it wasn't like there was any fears or anything like that. It was just like that feeling of, I'm all good the way that I am, that I'm desired for me, not just a whole to, release into. There's a lot to really be said. And one thing I wanted to point out, Siobhan, you're not married and you haven't been married. I don't know the longest relationship you've been in. I was married for almost 16 years. And then I was in a relationship before that for like 7. And so being in a monogamous relationship, you change. You change physically, you change as a person, and your sex life definitely changes. And I think, both of us with our ideas about self-care, it all comes back to you. So if you're feeling, because what happens a lot of times, we look to the people around us to fulfill a void. And if you're not feeling like you're getting what you want sexually, are you, once again, communicating? Are you communicating your desires? Are you taking Siobhan's advice, which is, don't just rush in there in the moment and say, listen, this is, you gotta really, and you can make it fun. You can make the conversation fun and lighthearted. And you also have to say no, because I don't know what it is with men sometimes, about, they come up, kiss you on the back of the neck, and it's like, that's my sign that I want to have sex with you. And you might need a lot more than that. And I think sometimes it gets difficult because I'm not trying to generalize, but it seems like men can have sex usually at the drop of a hat. Their mind is thinking about sex a lot. I've actually been told that by men. Now, not all men and not all the time, especially at different times in their life. Sometimes they're preoccupied with other things, or maybe they're just not turned on by their partner. If you are not in that kind of relationship, it doesn't mean you're not loved. It means maybe, because I'm talking as a person, I really wanted more. I really wanted to do more dates. I wanted to talk more, because all that would have gotten me really excited and wanting to be more intimate. I realized too that bigger than sex, so we were talking about masturbation, sex, whatever. If you're choosing to be celibate, celibacy is a choice. Is it because you are right now not looking for a partner or not interested in that, or have you shut down? Because there's still the possibility. You just have to figure out what you want and put that out there. Well, you know what I mean.
A couple of
I don't
things.
even put it out there.
Again, I want
With your heart.
to, because I think communication is such a big thing.
Okay, so
The
do I.
thing is, I need somebody to fuck my mind before they try to fuck my body. And what I mean,
Ooh, so wonderful.
and this
Vulgar yet bang on.
yeah.
No
So
pun intended.
I wrote down a list before we started talking. One of the things
Yeah.
that's important with communication in a sexual context is that non-verbal communication. So the next time that you're intimate with your partner, start to pick up and really pay attention to those non-verbals. How does their body shift and move and clench and moan?
Yeah.
How are those nonverbal things happening? And again, having honest conversations so you can have the honest conversations in the moment. So, what do you like? Where do you like to be touched? What parts of your body don't you like to be touched? And then again, this is all coming down to a lot of practice and a lot of feedback. So, that honest communication, knowing your desires and boundaries. And again, this is very, very, very important. And I say this especially because as somebody who was assaulted when I was 13, that really fucked with my head. It laid a shitty foundation for my boundaries. And I've struggled with the boundaries in relationships. And because there's sexual trauma, there's a lot of conversations that I have to have with people. And especially when it comes to safety and knowing
Mm.
I have the right to say no. So safety
Yes.
very, very important. So, knowing your desires and your boundaries, being able to communicate that, knowing that you have the right to say no, you have the right to change your mind at any given time, being able to communicate that within your partnership and having clarifying conversations because don't expect that somebody can read your mind. Don't expect that they know that this is where it ends for you, that this is where you start and end. Like people don't know that. And there could be situations that are a go, but then in a moment they're a
Yep.
that's really, really important too. So being very communicative throughout the process and knowing that you're empowered, you're in control of your body within a sexual context, and then being able to check in with your partner. Is this okay? How is this feeling? What do you like? What do you want more? Is there and again and to have even before.
Hearing you talk like that and say these things, I understand and I really appreciate that you shared that you had experienced sexual trauma. It's very difficult to do. Like I said, I haven't, but having had so much abandonment and rejection in my life that goes back so far, um, there's a lot of, I just think we bring so much to the sexual relationship. And you know what? Like I said, we're not dudes, but and for us right now, we're speaking from a heterosexual experience. There's all kinds of other things that can come in. But I was going to say that men are sensitive. And if they are expressing something that they might want to try, or maybe what they don't like, that we too, as their partners, need to not get defensive right away, but to listen. Because if someone is trying to communicate with you, they're allowing themselves to be vulnerable in that. Because a lot of times it's just like, you know that you put the dick in the pussy and you screw, right? Like I know that sounds really whatever, but that's let's do it. Siobhan does it. She says crude things.
I do.
Um, and I think we just need to be aware that and so sometimes say your partner says something that seems a little bit, wow, I would never do that. Like, I don't know, they bring up anal or they bring up like all kind whatever weird different thing they might want to try. And at first you're taken aback. Is it something, ask yourself why you don't want to, because if you're in a loving committed relationship, it's different if some random guy that you just happen to have a one night stand with says this is what I want to do. Don't just do what you feel comfortable with. But later on with your partner, ask yourself, why am I saying no? What am I resisting? And like, I'm not telling you to go do whatever it is, but think about it and see, or maybe it's just they need to talk about it. Maybe it's just to have fun having a conversation. I'm not willing to do that, but we can, maybe do some other things and bring some fun into it.
And
Siobhan?
what I think though is also practicing non-judgment and curiosity. So if your partner approaches you, and again, there's a very, very, we could have an entire conversation about BDSM, but
Yeah.
there's a very
Next time.
that people may have interest in it. And if your partner were to broach you with something that maybe, again, even hearing the words BDSM for a lot of people who don't understand the community, it sounds provocative, it sounds perverse, but there are resources. So again, there's a site called FetLife, for example. It's a really interesting place to find lots of great resources if you're looking to sort of think outside of the box of your sexual relationship. There's great forums that you can become involved in just so you can get a read or to get an understanding. So before you're like, what the
Yeah.
you give yourself the gift of curiosity and give yourself non-judgment. And again, it doesn't mean you have to say yes to all things that are brought forward to you. That's again, you need to know what no is for you, and there's got to be hard no's. But
Okay, listen. You don't remember that book, 50 Shades?
yeah,
Now that came out, it was quite a while ago when it came out, but it was amazing I read the book or the books, I read them all, and it was amazing that it wasn't the best literature, but it's amazing how many women were reading this book and getting their rocks off for, having this, you know, BDSM, experience in this story. And so I think that maybe as women, we don't allow ourselves to be raunchy and wild and freaky. It's like, oh, we're not supposed to. Do whatever the hell you want and have fun. Sometimes it's the really good girls that are loving the naughty.
But what's
Not
really
trying to say anything or not, I'm just saying.
that, because that book in particular is actually a very, very, very poor example of a healthy BDSM relationship. And
Oh,
that,
yes, it is.
I mean, but a lot of people read that and were like, oh my goodness. And, they want to think outside the box. But that's actually a very, very unhealthy example because there is not clear boundaries in that. There's not healthy.
Well, and the guy was coming from a place of trauma, not like, anyways, let's not analyze the story. But
But
you're right.
yeah.
You're right. I love that you have recommended. It's just explain, like, we've got Google, people. We've got other things. So I don't know the other engine sites, search engines, but there's just look, be open and just check into it on your own. And, like, we're coming up to our time already. Holy crap. And there's all these great comments. I'm going to say that you guys can check them out because you will see them when this feed is over. I guess maybe my last words right now would be, next time you're in the shower, you got the warm water and you got your soap, and just like, and maybe be a little bit silly at first, because it kind of like when I said one day I'm going to be a bajillionaire. Bajillion isn't really a word, and it makes me feel comfortable to imagine myself one day with lots and lots of money, and I love it, right? So maybe just kind of be silly at first and just, like, oh, I'm touching my nipples, and then you're like, wait a minute, it feels kind of good, right? And so start with just enjoying yourself. Maybe do a little journaling and thinking about what do you like. Allow yourself to just fantasize and maybe bring that back. So although I'm giving tips for the next time, but something to think about for right now. And I think number one for me, where you are right now is where you are. And as you continue to heal whatever the stuff is that is coming into the bedroom with you, whether or not you were sexually assaulted, whether you just had other areas of your life that had trauma, because it's not always just that, it's just a lot of connection to other people, right? So wherever you are right now, wherever you are on that healing journey, approach yourself with love, and hopefully you have a partner that can see you. Um, Anyways, that's my take on that. Siobhan?
Yeah. My last thing, again, for me, it's so, so important, the communication aspect. So everything goes back to, again, communicating with your mind and your body. So again, having that, the sensations that you're able to experience within yourself, and then being able to communicate and again, we would love to hear your comments or things maybe you want us to expand on. So if there was anything that we really touched over right now, but you're like, hey, I actually wouldn't mind a little bit more on that,
Yeah.
comments, send us a direct message. That doesn't have to get shared. We can definitely dive into it a little bit deeper because we do want to know what you want to talk about. But yeah, just in terms,
Especially for next week. Like, next week's our final session as far as, like, at least for right now. We definitely can come back to this another time down the road, but really let us know what you want us to talk about, because we will talk about it. It's on.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, in terms of just closing notes, having that communication, being able to speak with your partner, being in a place that is neutral, that you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable, maybe just writing, like you said, writing the things down and then bringing it to them. We'll talk more about next steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, just closing on that, that would be my end goal.
I just noticed that in the comments, a couple people mentioned therapy, helping them. And I absolutely agree. We've said that before. But one of the things that Siobhan and I talked about, we are not therapists in that level, but we put together some really amazing workshops and content. We're like, would you guys be interested in having a workshop about, like, sex? I don't know what it would be, but it'd be about really, and I'm not even going to say anything. A thought came in my mind, but I'm not going back there with a past workshop.
Yeah.
But about maybe thinking about stuff and talking about it, maybe kind of moving forward. So we're thinking about it. Won't happen tomorrow. We both have a lot of stuff going on right now, but it's something that we were discussing. So if that's something you might be interested in, you should check that out. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need some subscribers. We're just getting started, and I think we have as many subscribers as we have videos. So we want you guys to subscribe and share with your friends. Siobhan?
Yeah, that's everything. Yeah, you
Okay.
question us on KS and subscribe to the YouTube. Yeah, again, we are talking about the discussion. There's so many ways to add sex. I mean, we could incorporate yoga and Reiki, and there's a lot of energy modalities we can talk about.
Yeah, I love it.
So,
All right, guys, thank you so much, Siobhan. Thank you. And we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 7. Catch us on the replay, though. Take care, guys.
bye, guys.